President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Brigadier General Retired Dr. Julius Maada. National anthem, please. Please be seated. It's now my pleasure to invite the outgoing Secretary to the President and High Commissioner Designate of Sierra Leone to the Republic of Nigeria.
With Your Excellency's permission, I now call this session to order by invoking the presence of God through silent prayers. Silent individual prayers, please. Amen. Amen. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Chief Justice, Chief Minister and Ministers of Government, Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members of Parliament, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, development partners, public servants, friends of Sierra Leone, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me, on behalf of His Excellency the President, thank you for honoring an invitation to attend this section. We have not invited you to celebrate success. We have invited you to journey with us to success. So that when the story of a successful Sierra Leone is told in the future, we'll also be part of that success story. We have invited you to State House this afternoon to share our story with you. Our story of what has been done in the first 1 year of the second term of President Julius Maada. We have invited you so that by making our stewardship transparent and visible, we will benefit from your views and expertise on what we can do to build on the gains achieved so far, and also on what we can do differently to build a great nation. We have invited you to know that the right leadership and an effective team, to complementary support, not a master-servant relationship, determination and commitment, Sierra Leoneans can build a great Sierra Leone. Indeed, we are here this afternoon to let you know that Sierra Leone has a bright future when we move together decisively and conscientiously in the new direction under the leadership of President Julius Maada. We must make every effort not only to consolidate our gains, but also build on the gains achieved so far. We must embrace the new ways of doing things, a business unusual approach, bearing in mind that when, not if, when Maada succeeds, Sierra Leone succeeds. Now when Sierra Leone succeeds, we all succeed. That should be the wake-up mantra for every Sierra Leonean. It therefore behoves us to work relentlessly and for success for each other and for the success of Sierra Leone. As will be demonstrated shortly, Sierra is on the right path to win the future with the big 5 game changers. However, this can only happen through patriotic, committed, dedicated, and hardworking and honest Sierra Leoneans to build a new Sierra Leone that works for all of us. We need competitive, not divisive politics. We need support, not leadership from our partners and friends. We need the average Sierra Leonean to be enlightened and to be emancipated to the extent that, for example, rather than embarking on destroying extra transformers or adulterating foodstuffs for the public, they become part of the new Sierra Leone. They become part of the architects of the new Sierra Leone. That is the Sierra Leone we need, ladies and gentlemen. The Sierra Leone where we toil and plow our face with joy to feed ourselves. Feed Sierra Leone. The Sierra Leone where the youth are sufficiently empowered through appropriate education and awareness to embark on gainful activities, youth empowerment, and human capital development. The Sierra Leone where healthcare delivery facilities, where education and learning institutions and facilities are available, accessible, and affordable. Human capital development again. The Sierra Leone where we can compete favorably. The rapidly changing technology-based world, technology and infrastructure. The Sierra Leone where the public service is efficient, effective, and equitable, delivers services on the timely manner, increase public service productivity. The Sierra Leone that believes in the dignity of labor, that out of our own sweat we shall live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the new Sierra Leone under the effective leadership of President Julius Maada Bio. Welcome to organized and evidence-based messaging. Welcome to the winning team as we enter the brightest future Sierra Leone is building. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, now listen to the one-year amazing evidence-based and adulterated story so far, and I will add so good. Thank you for coming and thank you for paying attention to me. We would now go straight, as I said, accelerated delivery. We will not waste time on other speeches. I will go straight to the next item on the agenda, which we all have copies of, by inviting with humility the Speaker of Parliament to talk to us for 5 minutes. So, Speaker, sir.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, my Lord, the Acting Chief Justice of the Republic of Sierra Leone, the Honorable Leader of Parliament, Honorable Leader and other members of Parliament, the Chief Minister, Ministers and Deputy Ministers of Government, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored to stand before you as Speaker of the 6th Parliament of the Second Republic of the Republic of Sierra Leone to report to His Excellency, the President and the people of Sierra Leone on what we have achieved as a Parliament just about a year after the nation's June 2023 elections. As a necessary start, the current composition of Parliament consists of 149 members of Parliament. Of this number, 135 members were directly elected from Sierra Leone's 16 districts, while 14 are paramount chiefs elected from the 14 rural districts. Of the 135 directly elected members, 81 are of the governing Sierra Leone People's Party, SLPP, and 54 are of the main opposition All People's Congress, APC. Out of the total of 149 members of Parliament, 42 are women, representing a total of 30.4%. Since its first sitting in July 2023, Parliament has had 57 plenary sittings, and during which sittings has enacted 7 critical bills and 12 statutory and constitutional instruments. Parliament has ratified 13 loans, grants and agreements, 4 protocols, conventions and treaties, and approved 144 presidential nominees. The internal notice paper contains businesses that are before the House to be dealt with, and among these are 6 pending bills, namely the Public Financial Management Amendment Act 2023, the State-Owned Enterprises Ownership and Governance Commission Act 2023, the Petroleum Exploration and Production Amendment Act 2024, the National Youth Service Amendment Act 2024, the National Youth Commission Amendment Act 2024, and the Criminal Procedure Act 2024. These are all under review by the relevant committee and will be presented to the plenary for debate and approval in the coming weeks. There is no gainsaying that good governance and economic development are central concerns of both the government and the people of Sierra Leone. To that end, Parliament has had to critically review legislations proposed by the government to ensure that such legislations reflect the necessary good governance and economic development principles, and by doing so has contributed immensely to achieving both national and wider SDG plans. As an instrument of social engineering, the Sixth Parliament has, within this 1 year, facilitated various social reforms by enacting very progressive laws. Key among these are, first, the Industrial Relations and Trade Union Act 2024, which, in addition to creating space for 30% women employment and representation at management level at workplaces, also provide for equal remuneration, protection, and promotion of women's rights. And second, the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2024, which makes provision for the prohibition of child marriage, sets serious inhibiting penalties for perpetrators, and promote protection of child victims. On the economic and fiscal front are principally the National Monitoring and Evaluation Agency Act 2024 that makes clear provision for the establishment of the National Monitoring and Evaluation Agency to ensure greater accountability and transparency in the disbursement and use of public funds, and provide for the promotion of efficiency and effectiveness in the delivery of programs and projects. And second, the Anti-Money Laundering and Combating the Financing of Terrorism and Financing the Proliferation of Weapons of Mass Destruction Act 2024, which makes provision for the transformation of the Financial Intelligence Agency responsible for the receipt, analysis, and dissemination of financial information and the criminalization of money laundering, financing of terrorism, and financing the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Your Excellency the President, I'm here to indicate clearly to you and the people of Sierra Leone and our distinguished guests that since the inauguration of the Sixth Parliament in July last year, concerted efforts have been made to actualize the government's objectives. Members of Parliament have collectively and individually contributed on matters dealing with the aspirations of government and the people of Sierra Leone, and have approved, ratified, and built consensus on issues requiring legislative action. The legislative statistics indicate that Parliament has handled or carried out so far over 182 legislative instruments submitted or referred to it for legislative action. There is no doubt that the actions of Parliament during the period under review has contributed to nation building and the achievement of the big 5 game changers of 1, human capital development, free quality education, affordable health care, agriculture and food security, and energy and infrastructure. In the circumstances, Your Excellency the President, invited guests, I wish to state that even as we go forward, Parliament stands prepared to support His Excellency the President's government to ensure that the best is achieved for Sierra Leone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for assuring us of the support of Parliament as we move forward. The report will form part of the general report at the end of this session, but I'm pleased to hear that you've approved 144 presidential nominees. I'm sure more will be coming in the next 2 weeks. With that, I now invite the Honorable Mr. Chief Justice to give us a 5-minute briefing.
Your Excellency, the President, Brigadier Retired Dr. Julius Maada Bio, the Honorable Speaker of the House of Parliament, the Honorable Singapore Thomas, Honorable Ministers of Government and Honorable Members of Parliament, Your Excellencies, High Commissioners and Ambassadors from our sister and friendly countries, Consular officials here present, Mr. Secretary to the President, public officers serving the government of Sierra Leone, other distinguished persons here present, good afternoon. I have been asked to say something about the work which we in the judiciary have been doing in terms of a constitutional mandate between June last year and today. First, last year we made sure we were ready for elections, and we held 2 residential retreats, one at Radisson Blu, Aberdeen, and the other at the place Tokyo, where we were able to go through the Public Elections Act 2023 and all the related constitutional and statutory instruments which have been promulgated by Parliament. We brought judges who were expert in handling election petitions from Ghana and Kenya with the assistance of the Attorney General Alliance, AGA, well known internationally for assisting developing nations like ours in providing training in all aspects of the law when needed. The retreat was a success. Excellent guidance was provided as to how we should deal with not just challenges to the election of the President, but also challenges to the election of MPs and of mayors, chairmen, and councillors of local authorities. The training was immensely useful and beneficial as the learning was gained from judges in sister republics like ours, which had cause to deal with election results challenges. We also received training in how to deal with criminal cases dealing specifically with elections, such as impersonation during the registering for elections processes, and the use of violence at elections. All of this was intended to put us judges and magistrates in a state of readiness should cases be brought before us in any of the courts on any matter relating to the 2023 election cycle. The elections came and went. There were a few criminal cases of a minor nature, but there were no election petitions. Parliament had already passed into law the necessary constitutional and statutory instruments to govern the district block proportional representation form of election, under which all the anticipated elections, save the presidential elections, would be held pursuant to Section 38 of the Constitution of Sierra Leone 1991 as amended. But the learning gained during these training workshops will still be useful if and when we decide to return to the single-member constituency election process in the future. Post-elections, work continued as before. The appellate courts, in addition to their regular dockets, had to deal with appeals from findings of the 3 commissions of inquiry set up by government. Some of the judgments have been delivered, while the remaining ones will be delivered as soon as possible. We have been listening to the complaints of those who were found wanting by the findings of the respective commissions, and we are doing our best to ensure the early delivery of their standing judgments. In order to give context to the issue of delays in delivering judgments in these specific appeals, the judges who have sat on these appeals have to sit on several other appeals of equal importance to the parties in them. Some of them, because of the relatively small number of judges, have also to sit on cases brought at first instance to the High Court. They also have to hear appeals from magistrates' courts. Their respective schedules are therefore very hectic. Another thing I think I should mention is that litigation has increased and expanded exponentially. Notwithstanding the increasing use of arbitration by business people and other forms of mediation, litigation in the courts is on the increase. Everybody seems to want his or her day in court. Mediation in cases heard in the Commercial and Admiralty Division of the High Court is compulsory, but 3/4 of cases which have gone through this process end up going into full-scale trial. Usually, we do the assessment of work done during the course of the year, but for the purposes of this presentation, I asked the Master and Registrar to come up with some of the statistics, and I'll refer to them shortly. The same increase is notable in cases in the magistrates' courts. Every individual has a right to bring a private prosecution in the courts. So it turns out that a large number of the criminal cases which come before magistrates are brought by private individuals. abusive and insulting language cases, being duped by 419ers that he has a scheme for traveling to the now favorite destination of Canada or Australia, or he has a house for sale or for rental. All of these cases have to be heard and determined by a court. During the period under review, the following number of cases came up for hearing. Western area, 1,135 traffic cases, 2,505 private criminal summonses were issued for hearing in the magistrates' courts. There were 1,538 public prosecutions, that is, criminal cases brought to court by the police. In the High Court, there were 50 anti-corruption criminal cases and 450 other criminal cases. Also in the High Court Civil Division, 2,086 cases were filed by lawyers. The Sexual Offences Court, which is also a part of the Criminal Division of the High Court, had to deal with 207 cases. 104 cases were filed in the Commercial and Admiralty Division of the High Court. 61 cases came up for hearing in the Supreme Court, and 168 appeals came up for hearing in the Court of Appeal. McKinney had to deal with 140 criminal cases and 87 civil cases. Bo had 199 criminal cases and 60 civil cases. Kabbalah had 52 criminal cases but no civil cases. Kailao had to deal with 11 civil cases and 83 criminal cases. And Kenema had to deal with 105 criminal cases and 13 civil cases. Sadly and regrettably, we lost to the Honorable Justice Agri last year. He was the judge stationed in Kenema. It meant we were short of one judge. I asked the Honorable Justice Banks Kamara, the resident judge in Kailao, to cover the Kenema High Court. I thank His Lordship for taking on the added responsibility of presiding over another court in another district. Just last month, I asked the Honorable Mr. Justice Sano, the resident judge in Bo, to continue where the Honorable Mr. Justice Banks Kamara had left off and to deal with all pending matters in the Kenema High Court. I must also thank Mr. Justice Sano for the splendid work he has done in the short period. He has had to deal with, as indicated above, 199 criminal cases in Bo. He now has the added responsibility of dealing with an equally substantial number of cases in Kenema. He will continue to do so until hopefully the judiciary gets a few more judges. I must also commend the resident judge in Port Loko, the Honorable Justice Sharif. He took on the added responsibility of presiding over cases in Kabbalah, and I thank him for the speed with which he has dealt with these cases. Lest I forget, I must also specifically thank the Honorable Mr. Justice Monfred Sisi for the sterling work he did in Kono last month. He'll be there again on Monday, next 8th July. Thus, this is not an audit exercise in the truest sense of the word, a rough calculation of the number of cases pending in all the courts vis-a-vis the number of judges and magistrates will show that the High Court had to deal with over 8,000 cases. The Court of Appeal 168 and the Supreme Court 61 and still rising. Including myself, there are only 7 judges on the Supreme Court. We do not sit on trials. There are 8 justices of appeal who also sit on High Court cases with 168 appeals to hear. Since I took up office in December 2023, I have tried as best as possible not to assign High Court matters to these justices, save adoption applications, which I now specifically assign to 3 female High Court judges. The aim is to ensure that appeals are disposed of speedily. 9 High Court judges had to deal with over 3,000 cases countrywide, not counting cases carried over from the period before. And more cases have come on board. The ratio also applies to the magistrates. Over 5,000 cases in the Western area alone, with just 12 active magistrates, as Magistrate Gegba has since 1st February this year been engaged in his role as judge advocate at the court martial. That trial hopefully should end towards the end of this month. These are the provisional statistics. Contrary to the generally held belief that the political arm of government governs how cases are dealt with and determined, the vast majority of cases in the courts have nothing whatsoever to do with the government or with senior government officials. Post-election, the business of the courts went on as usual. Then in October, the security apparatus discovered a plot to overthrow the government. Then on 26 November, there was shooting and the jailbreak. The events of 26 November have resulted in a treason trial of the civilians and a court-martial, to which I've also referred to above, of the soldiers. Both are ongoing. As to the commercial, I was asked by the military to accommodate it, to which request I readily acceded. Therefore, they are occupying High Court number 2. This has led to a delay in the hearing of other important criminal cases, but it is likely to end soon. To return to the events of late last year, on 7th December 2023, I was asked by His Excellency the President to act in the office of the Chief Justice during the absence and leave of the Honorable Justice Edwards. I readily accepted the appointment and thanked His Excellency for the confidence reposed in me. I set to work immediately. The most immediate need was to ensure that all cases were speedily heard and determined. The Court of Appeal was reorganized so that unless for some reason a justice of that court could not sit on a particular matter, the bench in any particular appeal would be composed of substantive justices of the court. If in any particular case a full panel of 3 substantive justices could not be empaneled, the most senior judge in the High Court would fill the vacant position, or the most recently appointed Supreme Court justice would head the panel. We were having some difficulty with some appeal court justices having too many High Court matters to attend to, thus delaying the hearing of appeals. The other side of the coin was also true. There were High Court judges empaneled to sit in the Court of Appeal, which resulted in them not being able to sit at first instance in the High Court on many occasions. I'm of course aware of the heavy workload on the shoulders of many of our judges. The cases are many, but the hands are few. I thank my brother and sister judges for the cooperation they have been giving me so far, so as to ensure that we deliver on our mandate of adjudicating cases. The magistrates' courts have also been receiving my attention. They are at the coalface of our interaction with the public. I have earlier alluded to the right of a private citizen to bring criminal proceedings. And as I have stated, this has resulted in the considerable increase in the number of cases requiring adjudication. In addition to my other functions, I have also shared responsibility with other senior judges for the assignment of these cases in the Western area. My aim, as always, is to ensure a fair distribution of cases to all magistrates so as to ensure each magistrate has something to do. In the provinces, cases go directly to each magistrate, but based on their respective monthly returns, I'm able to keep tabs on their respective outputs. And in this connection about the number of cases and the number of magistrates who preside, I have written to the Honorable Attorney General and the Minister of Justice, notifying him that it is my wish that we start using justices of the peace again to preside over the very simple matters, what we call the abusive language cases. In one particular aspect, I've taken an interventionist position. The widespread trafficking of the drug known as kush resulted in His Excellency declaring that the dire situation should be treated as an emergency. Alarm bells were raised in a particular case where the accused charged with possession of the drug was given a fine of 3,000 leones in lieu of a term of imprisonment. 3,000 leones is actually the maximum fine a magistrate can impose, and this is because over 30 years ago, the then governing NPRC, in the Penalties and Fines Decree 1993, which decree was adopted as an act of parliament in a 1996 act, increased right across the board the fines which could be imposed by magistrates. Some at the time were as low as 10 leones. They were all beefed up, but that was 31 years ago. Parliament needs to do the same once more. Because of this incident, I have directed all magistrates to post in the Magistrates WhatsApp forum, of which all Supreme Court judges and I are members, on a daily basis all cases involving the trafficking and sale of narcotics. In this way, we are able to monitor the way and manner in which these cases are handled on a daily basis. I cannot dictate what a magistrate should or could do. That would be most unprofessional and unworthy of the office I hold. What I and other Supreme Court judges could do is to provide assistance and guidance when and where requested. I have also been paying serious attention to adoption applications. I have urged judges to whom they are assigned to be very scrupulous in dealing with them. The law is still what is laid down in the Adoption Act 1989. The applicant or applicants have to be present in court when the application is heard. There are laws against human and child trafficking. Stiff penalties have been imposed for violations of these laws by the courts. We must therefore do all in our power to ensure that we do not encourage these nefarious activities by allowing adoptions without rigorous scrutiny. Without such scrutiny, we will be aiding child trafficking. The administration itself has been active. Cases in the higher courts are assigned as and when they are submitted to the respective registries for assignment. This is done on a daily basis. The number of lawyers complaining that the files have not been assigned has reduced substantially and drastically. Misplacing of files in the registry has been considerably reduced because of the strong supervisory role now played by judges. Bail for persons accused in criminal cases is one of my strong concerns. I took the lead in the formulation and drafting of the Bail Regulations 2018. I have tried to ensure during this short period of 6 months during which I have been in office in this acting position that the rules are strictly adhered to. My vision is that no person should be wrongfully incarcerated using the law or its processes as a smokescreen. I also have a particular interest in criminal law and procedure. I have led the review of the Criminal Procedure Act 1965 since 2010. It has gone through several reviews under different governments and parliaments. I'm happy to report that it is now receiving the final touches in Parliament. In fact, I was there this morning. My Lord Speaker is also an ardent supporter of the changes in the law incorporated in the bill, and he has ensured that at every stage of his journey through Parliament, I am present to witness his deliberations and to provide guidance. In 1965, my father also was then Solicitor General with Mr. Barton Macaulay as Attorney General in Sir Albert Magai's government, ushered in the 1965 Act. I am happy that nearly 60 years down the line, I have been given the opportunity to bring to Bath another Criminal Procedure Act by His Excellency. I have also in the past chaired and participated in drafting several pieces of legislation dealing with various aspects of the criminal justice system and jurisprudence. Once again, I'm happy to say one of them, the new Offences Against the Person Act, to replace the 1861 Act, will soon be forwarded to the Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice for finalizing the same. As acting head of the Rules Committee, we will also soon be embarking on reviewing the rules of the various courts. In 2024, we are still using the Magistrates Court Rules 1966, the Court of Appeal Rules 1985, the Supreme Court Rules 1982. In 2007, one of my illustrious predecessors in office and my one-time head of chambers, Dr. Leone Thomas, Chief Justice in President Kaba's government, pioneered the passing of the High Court Rules 2007, replacing the High Court Rules 1960. He had also embarked on the review of the rules I have mentioned above before leaving office. I would like to honor his memory by completing these tasks which I have set out above. During my tenure, 2 international events were held here in Sierra Leone. Both of them brought honor and distinction on and to our beloved country. The first was the Special Court Legacy Conference, which was organized and held by the Residual Special Court, in which our own Justice Roberts of the Supreme Court was the outgoing Vice President, and which 5 of our other judges are serving. Justice Roberts was our focal point for the conference. It was held to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the opening of the court building. Attendees were drawn from former officials of the court, the Office of the Prosecutor, and of the Court's Registry, and lawyers who had participated in the court proceedings. I was there not only in my capacity as acting Chief Justice, but also as a former prosecutor in the Office of the Prosecutor. The Honorable Vice President represented His Excellency. The Honorable Vice President delivered a memorable speech in which he set out, among other things, the benefits of restorative as well as punitive justice. The Honorable Vice President also set out His Excellency's government plans for the future use of the infrastructure, which include ensuring it remains a center of justice. We thank the Honorable Vice President for communicating to us the progressive views of His Excellency and of His Excellency's government. The other event was the ECOWAS Court Conference held less than 2 months ago in May. I must once again, and this time publicly, thank His Excellency the President for assigning the role of organizing the conference to the judiciary of Sierra Leone, and for also ensuring that sufficient funds were allocated to the judiciary for the purpose of hosting the conference. Without His Excellency's personal intervention, we would not have been able to do justice to the occasion. In his speech opening the conference, His Excellency reconfirmed Sierra Leone's adherence to the principles and policies of the ECOWAS institutions, including the court, where our brother Supreme Court Judge, the Honorable Justice Sengu Kuruma, is serving. From the feedback we have got from our colleagues in the court, His Excellency's reaffirmation of Sierra Leone's commitment to the future progress of all ECOWAS institutions was heartwarming and very positive. I cannot end without publicly acknowledging the good working relationship I have had with the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Justice, the Solicitor General of the Director of Public Prosecutions. In our frequent exchange of ideas and of views, much work has been done and will continue to be done. It is a relationship I treasure with which all of us are well acquainted with our respective duties and obligations. I thank you all for listening. Once more, I publicly thank His Excellency the President for giving me the opportunity to take the lead in judicial affairs. God bless us all.
You know, we are truly building a new Sierra Leone. I mean, what is happening here this afternoon has never happened before. To have all arms of government to be accountable to the people of this country. I think we're really truly grateful to the President for allowing this to happen. In all my years in governance, I think this is the first time we'll have the Speaker, the Honorable Chief Justice, and the Executive also to present and give account of their stewardship for this nation. Thank you, Mr. President. Can we give a round of applause to the President, please? But of course, we have more in stock for you, and then listen to the one-year amazing, as I said, evidence-based and unadulterated, undiluted story. And I invite the Chief Minister to run us through the gains, the consolidating gains, 365 days of accelerated delivery.
Your Excellency, President Julius Maada Bio, the Speaker of Parliament, my Lord the Chief Justice, Honorable colleague ministers, the Leader of Government, and other honorable members of Parliament, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'll give a short presentation on some highlights of what the executive arm of government has been able to achieve over the last 12 months. We will ultimately publish a more comprehensive list that has been developed and shared by all the different ministries. And what we're seeing here is going to focus on the Big Five. The Big Five, as extracted from our National Development Plan, just for reminders, Feed Salon, which is focusing on boosting our agricultural productivity to ensure food security and inclusive economic growth. Human capital development, focusing on nurturing skills for the 21st century. The Youth Employment Scheme to create jobs for about 500,000 young people. Revamping the public sector, which has continued to evolve to include the public, justice, and local government sector, to ensure that there is delivery, efficiency, and professionalism. And then technology and infrastructure to drive economic growth. These are all linked and make the core of the National Development Plan. On Feed Salon, a few of the highlights is that we've been able to increase our budget allocation from about 2%, a waiver between 2 and 3%, to 7% over the last year. What that has meant in practice is that we have been able to plant nearly 20,000 hectares of rice, which is closer to 3 times what the planting is we did the previous year. We've been able to focus on 6 agro-clusters last year, and on Tomabom and Bondapi specifically, we have 3,000 hectares of IVS in Tomabom and 1,500 hectares of invalid swamp in Bondapi. For private sector, we've been able to produce over 2,000 metric tons of certified seeds. This is based on an institution that was developed in the first term of His Excellency's presidency. We've been able to raise $10 million from the Bank of Sierra Leone, a facility that is available for rice, poultry, livestock to the private sector. And the $7.9 million FSRP, one of our projects, has a matching grant for rice, cassava, and livestock. About 2 years ago, there was shortage of onions globally, and that led His Excellency to make a policy statement that we should be able to grow and produce our own onion here. And since that declaration, we have over 2,200 metric tons of onion produced in Sierra Leone, which has reduced imports by 10%. Our ambition is to eliminate the import of onions in this country. And the government of Sierra Leone, not just relying on the private sector, has been able to support farmers for about 1,000 hectares on onion production. We can't just let agriculture happen by itself. Humans, technical humans, have to be able to support these policy reforms. And as such, the government, through approval from the Ministry of Finance and HRMO, has given the authority to the Ministry of Agriculture to hire about 1,000 extra field staff, 700 in 2004, and about 300 in 2025. As I mentioned, there are many more of results related to Feed Salon. A critical component of food security and improving economy is that agriculture also supports job creation. Sierra Leone has a new sardine factory. Beyond the sardine factory employing people, the oil comes from Sierra Leone. The pepper comes from Sierra Leone. The fish comes from Sierra Leone, thereby increasing the number of people who are employed directly and indirectly for this factory. But the most interesting thing about this factory is that it has certification to export to UAE and to Cape Verde. And now this factory in Sierra Leone is in the process of exporting Sierra Leonean produced sardines. One of the things as well that we've been able to do to support local production is to ensure that the industry cuts across the different streams of agricultural productivity. We've been able to open the first ever large-scale poultry hatchery in Makini. We have a modern cashew processing factory that has been established in Newton, and dozens of tractors, harvesters, rice mills, and landing crafts have been distributed across the country to support our agricultural efforts. We have a new rice policy, not just that we are able to be on the farm and provide machines. The policy is there to ensure that we can work across government on institutional feeding that will boost local productivity, with school feeding, with feeding in prisons, and feeding with our forces. There's a policy review to reform cacao and poultry, because government has to do what it needs to do to ensure that the people who become farmers are supported in their efforts as well. Digitization is critical in agriculture, and we have a biometric digital national farmers registry, which is under development to inform decision making. And Sierra Leone continues to play a global leadership role in the sub-region, but also globally. The Ministry of Agriculture is the co-chair of the Alliance of Champions for Food Systems Transformation, driving policy not just in our region, but for around the world. Human Capital Development, which was His Excellency's flagship program over the last 5 years, still remains a critical part of what we need to do. Just 3 weeks ago, a 142-bed state-of-the-art children's hospital was opened in Lumley, Freetown. A couple other hospitals and facilities across the country will be ready by the end of 2024. 6 new PHUs have been completed in Bombali, Port Loko, and Karine. 12 therapeutic oxygen plants have been installed in major referral hospitals in Bo, Kenema, Bombali, and Freetown. And I must add that those are also solarized. Our National Public Health Agency was established, and that agency today is one of the best things we had, because it's been able to deal with the emerging public health emergency related to Kush, and it's been able to work across government to ensure that it can help with prevention and control. Just 20 years ago, Sierra Leone had 1,682 maternal deaths out of 100,000. One of the worst places to be pregnant and to be a woman. When His Excellency made it a priority to move towards zero, We can see from the chart the speed with which we're reducing. And just the other day, we launched with the Ministry of Health Press Track, the Kumbra app, which is to further deepen this curve as we move from 443 in 2020 to an ambitious 70 by 2030. Your Excellency, I channeled your vision and ambition to the Ministry of Health and told them that 70 was too large and that they must be at 0 preventable maternal deaths in this country by 2038. And we're not going there by magic. Some of the things that we've done in the last year have been that we've been able to have 6 maternity theaters rehabilitated in Freetown. We've completed the construction of a new midwifery school in Kenema. 1,750 new doctors, nurses, and other medical professionals have been hired. And there is currently being rolled out the first WHO-approved malaria vaccine to not just keep our mothers safe, but to ensure that our newborns and children are also safe. Education remains important in human capital development. Homegrown school feeding in our integrated effort remains critical. And I just learned that apart from the fact that we have about 136,000 children who are benefiting largely from homegrown school feeding, our partners like WFP have scaled the production, the procurement of local food by about 3,000%. We continue to pay lots of monies for kids in exams, classes, and school fees since June. 128 million new Leones has been paid so far. And I know the Minister of Education would love for me to impress on the Minister of Finance that more needs to be done this year already. And Your Excellency, it's not just for the children. Through NACSA and through some of the welfare programs for the most vulnerable and poor, we've been able to provide 627 million new Leones in welfare support to 2,320 vulnerable age in the following districts: Port Loko, Kailaun, Karine, Bonth, Tonkolili, and Kenema. I had mentioned the National Public Health Agency. One of the things that has been critical in the last year is the One Government and the work, which is the public rehab center for drug and substance abuse that has rolled across the country over 1,000 patients rehabilitated and reintegrated. And I think tomorrow I'm going to one of the centers to graduate about 100 or so of these people. This is work that has been done across with the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Internal Affairs, National Public Health Agency, Ministry of Health, Social Welfare, and everybody has been working together to ensure that we can protect our young people. Kono University of Science and Technology is functioning. It's been able to enroll over the last year its first set of students. Construction work is ongoing for the campus to have its own new set of administrative buildings. For now, they're in a rented facility, but it's a fully functioning university. Infrastructure and technology, which is also critical for our Big Five, is that we saw the Waka Fine buses. Your Excellency, we see about 20,000 people use the Waka Fine. And when there are insecurities, in the past, the city used to be shut down. Today, we saw that when there are challenges, from morning till night, Waka Fine is there, and I have had a wonderful pleasure myself to ride in those buses, and they continue to be efficient. There are pedestrian bridges, and one of the most beautiful things that I have seen, and perhaps it was really done for them, is that the school children, and I hadn't originally noticed, the school children are the ones who love hanging out and using this, but it really was for road safety. And they understand the value of these in all in the major pedestrian crossings in Lumley, Lunge, Bottom Mango, and Shell. It's serving the purpose for which it was created. And a beautiful image that I saw recently was a video, I think, by one of the citizen actors, was about the Waka Fine bus passing under the footbridge and with the dividers right there to show what infrastructure looks like. Embedded within that project is that we have a state-of-the-art transport transit terminal in Lumley that has been completed and ready for your inauguration. Compounded and added to that complementary is that there is a market facility that will be there so that we can really transform our society. We had a new airport just before the start of the second term. And since, we've been able to see that we've increased number of flights have increased from 37 to 47 times per week since this new airport, including a new Ethiopian Airlines. And a few people independently, apart from the fact that Ethiopian Airlines is now making an application to extend its number of frequencies to fly every day in Sierra Leone. The feedback that we've gotten is it's amongst the best things for Sierra Leoneans who are now going to the Far East because they can go directly to Ethiopia and go to their other destinations in hours. Things that used to take 2 days for them to get to, now they can do in less than 24 hours. So we continue to work with the Ministry of Transport and the airport to bring more flights. Your Excellency, it's easy for us to assume that energy is a disaster. You know when there are energy challenges, when there is no light. You forget that there was light for 1 week before the period in which you have no light. And one of the things I wanted to focus on is that government has been doing many things on infrastructure towards energy, apart from the fact that we launched in this period a 6 megawatt solar plant at Newton that had not been opened for a while, now is energized and producing green energy. We've been able to have new transformers that will expand the capacity, the expansion, the evacuation capacity from 80 megawatts in the western area to 116 megawatts. And we'll also close in new loops that will mean that the single point of failure will be limited as we continue to invest in our energy infrastructure. We have new generators that have been set up in about 4 towns. Those will be functional as government figures out the sustainable fiscal regime that will ensure that the people are able to afford the power that they need. We've rehabilitated and extended the Bokenema distribution system and transmission substations that also now include being able to get energy from renewable sources along the transmission lines. Technology plays a critical role for our transformation. And I think we're still back to energy. Sierra Leone's Energy Compact, which will transform our transmission lines in the northern corridor, southern corridor, and build loops as well that bring stability to our energy generation across the country, and not just for Freetown, but also to support our industrial areas. It's not just government work, sir. We've been able, through government support, through various entities in government, work with private sector to bring in close to $800 million over the last year directly from the DFC in supporting private sector entities that do work in Sierra Leone. And this is direct interventions in the last 12 months. It's not just us that do the work. You also help us not just by giving direction, but you also do the work for us. And we want to thank you for leading single-handedly the mobilization of 840 million for energy and agricultural investment. To technology, Sierra Leone became the 3rd country in West Africa, I think 7th in Africa, 100th in the world, or 9th in Africa, 100th in the world where Starlink today is available. And I asked the Starlink people, Sierra Leone is per capita one of the places where the rate at which the number of people are getting Starlink, it remains high. And I think that it's one of those things that one cannot imagine until it happens. And we're very excited that some of the transformation that will happen with Starlink is again to support the vision that you've had, that children all across this country will be able to access quality education no matter where they are. We hosted a Sierra Leone Innovates Tech Summit that brought together over 4,000 delegates, 9 MOUs were signed, and a new city called Fele Tech City was launched which will be in Bo City. But critical again to this one government and integration, we saw model of the Sierra Leone Education Innovation Challenge, the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Communication and Innovation launched the Sierra Leone Agriculture Innovation Challenge, which was which saw participants who were all young people creating companies within agriculture. And we want to thank you for giving the presidential award of $30,000 for the best for the best innovator. And they did have a caveat that it's not because you like how's it called, irrigation, but the company that the team that won was an irrigation company. The Ministry of Communication has also been able to secure a $50 million loan from the Chinese Exim Bank for a Safe City project, but I will also expand fiber connectivity. So whilst we're looking up to the stars, we're also going on the ground and ensuring that we have full redundancy in our connectivity. Your Excellency, because we will continue to set ambitious targets, I heard and I fully support that you have tasked that we go to 100% 4G. So, Madam Minister, I know we had said 100% 3G, which you've done. Your Excellency has said we should go to 100% 4G over the next year. So that's the assignment. It's not just digital. We're also laying roads. We've laid about 130 kilometers of roads that are under construction. The Pujon Road has seen major progress. The Makoluma-Mabang Road we saw, and the feeder roads for agriculture. Several dozens of kilometers of feeder roads in Cambia, in Tomabon, and in those 6 hubs that I spoke about are currently under construction. The youth employment scheme, we've been able to have, again, in this integrated form, young people not just be employed in doing random things, but being productive. So we have about 3,800 young people who have been developing 850 hectares of IVS farm projects. We've been able to formally engage that some of our migrants, our technical labor is also exported, and we have trained young people in renewable energy, building electrical installations, and empowered some with small micro businesses, including working with kekes and on digital skills. The youth corps are important, and we've been able to train about 400 over last year. Your Excellency, we ourselves we're hosting about 5 of them here, and this is, again, thanks to your leadership. And all of these youth corps are being distributed across the other MDAs. We added the public sector. We started we added the justice sector. We started with the public sector reform. You've heard that when the Speaker of Parliament spoke and when the Chief Justice spoke, everybody spoke about the CPA. And you and I were speaking about it this morning. The CPA will decriminalize poverty. And I think the kind of reforms that the Speaker and the Chief Justice have spoken about are fundamental to the future of this country, where now when you're poor, you don't have any choice. You go to prison because you can't afford a fine and you can't afford a bail. But with the CPA and the alternative pathways, poor people can finally have access to better justice. And we thank you for your leadership in making sure that we do that. The Civil Service Code regulations and rules have been reviewed. The Foreign Service Academy is functional and it's taking courses. Service Commission has been established, and it's doing its work and working with the Ministry of Finance to ensure that they can help strengthen the public sector. And we passed the ICAO, I think, for the first 70%. But I wanted to focus on something that happened recently, and Her Excellency, the First Lady, championed and through a private member's bill. And what that shows again is that as a country, together, we can work across the aisle and we can work as individuals inspired by your vision. And we saw the prohibition of the child marriage bill, which has also been referenced. And some of the most important things in there is that now those children can have access to compensation when they are being wronged, and not just is the prohibition. On the economy, I wanted to focus on a couple of things. We thank the Ministry of Finance, the National Revenue Authority. The targets that were set for H1 has been met. But those targets weren't just met for the first 6 months. We've seen that inflation is going down. Headline inflation, food inflation, non-food inflation are all going down and continue to trend downwards since, as you can see, June 2023 all the way to now, and we keep working towards that. Within this period as well, we see the Forex is stable. It's the most stable Forex has been in Sierra Leone since, I don't know, 2010. I think it's a remarkable thing. Obviously, the challenge, again, because we keep challenging each other to the Ministry of Finance, stability is fine. We want it to go downwards as well. We'll keep ensuring that we'll challenge them to have that trend reverse. For the macroeconomy, we expect a growth of about 4% in 2024, and with the efforts of work that we do, that is projected to go to 4.5, and obviously we need to be in the 6 to 8% range to get towards the middle income that you project. Your Excellency, we don't list these things because we're done. As the chairman said, we're not celebrating success. We're reminding ourselves that we have a lot more to do. And as an executive and on behalf of all my colleagues, I want to assure you that this is just a small set of what has been done. And this is a small set of what has been done as per the vision and the mandate that you've given to us. When you talk, we do. When you vision, we will deliver. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Minister. I think I have to keep repeating myself. Today is a novelty, as I said earlier. We've had a narrative from the Chief Minister, very carefully articulated by himself. And I will say again, so far, so good. As I said earlier, it's yet too early to celebrate success. And I'm sure we can pat ourselves on the back that we're in the right direction. Again, it's a stark reminder that we have to do more. The journey has just begun for the second term of His Excellency the President. We invited our friends here, the non-state actors, the CSOs and the diplomatic corps. I will now also invite a representative from the CSO, Mr. Andrew Lavalley, to make his comments. We want to learn from your expertise to build a great nation. Thank you.
Your Excellency, President, Honorable Chief Minister, Cabinet Ministers, members of the Diplomatic Consular Corps, I'm talking as a civil society, so sometimes we breach protocols and we go straight to script. But with all due protocols observed, so I am here to say good afternoon. And just to confess that sitting over there listening to this presentation, I was actually overwhelmed. And I don't know if I should throw this script aside and just respond to that. But being that I was sent to read this, I'll just stick to that. So it's indeed delightful to be part of this event. We call it Airport Making Event, to give account to stewardship to citizens. So while performance contracting and ministerial performance has been on since APC and since President Bio's first inning, this is the first time in the history of Sierra Leone that government has made performance contracting open to the public. And we say thank you to Chief Minister David Senge for trailblazing this process and ensuring that citizens are really brought closer, much more closer to government than ever before. And we just encourage that you continue to push boundaries of effort in this regard. Sierra Leone is moving forward. And from what I see, we realize that we are actually building a performance-driven society, with citizens being a critical part of that journey. As civil society, we are already taking advantage of that. I don't know, for those of you who have not seen, we have the www.biometer.sl.com that captures all of the aspirations of government online, and all of the ministerial performance contracts for the first time are online. So as a citizen, you don't need to take arms, you don't need to take guns, you don't need to riot. You can go online and ask your government official directly the questions that you want to ask. So on the Biometer, which I will talk about in a few minutes, that platform captures 103 promises made by government, and those are promises that were made in the campaign, and those promises were translated into the medium-term National Development Plan. So we realized that in the first inning of the president, 536 promises were actually made, and 79% of those promises were either fully complete, significantly completed, or being touched. We realized that about 21% of those promises were either hard to measure by civil society or were not touched at all. But we learned two lessons from all of this. That even if 536 promises were completed between 2018 to 2023, they were not transformative enough to change Sierra Leone. That's one lesson that we learned, because there are quite a number of the promises that were on administrative and legal reforms, perhaps to lay the basis of what you are seeing today. But the other lesson is that I think government actually learned from that manifesto, and in developing the 2023 to 2028 manifesto, we actually are now seeing tangible. So it's not surprising for us to see in the very first year things that are worthy of special notice. And because the 2023 to 2028 development agenda is much more transformative and much more impactful, and this is the more reason why we should focus on the content therein. So while we celebrate the gains today, we saw the myriad of goodies, that government has been working on in the past 365 days, it must not be lost on us that we need to make the environment much more conducive for the delivery of better results. We need to make the environment much more conducive not only for development dialogue, but for development action. It's good, Your Excellency, to note that since the end of the war and since the introduction of multi-party in 1996, the last 365 days has been the most troubling days for Sierra Leone. They've been the most troubling days. There are days, we're still counting. On our part, we are working on the complete cost study on what went on in the last 365 days. We can count the days that our kids did not go to school. We are still counting the days markets were closed, stores were closed. Unfortunately, Chief Minister Senge did not really state what we lost. But we are interested in hiving out what we lost in this process. We are still counting the days where the stigma we're having as a country and the distraction it makes on investment. We actually need to understand that and bring that in full measure as we discuss development. And it's also fair to say that even our ranking on the Global Peace Index is reducing. And we call on government to take action on that. That our kids cannot go to school, that there are moments when hospitals were closed because nurses cannot go to hospitals. We need to count on that, and we call on government to act on that. And, citizens, we want government not to relent, but to continue its fight against corruption. There's one reason why we're saying this, because the resources that you've mentioned, the books, the medicines, the seeds, the tools for farmers need to reach the intended beneficiaries. And my colleague said that we need to call on government to increase more attention to reforms, especially decentralized service delivery, because the fight we see in Sierra Leone is largely about who is in State House. And we believe that with deepening decentralization, deepening concentration of power, I think there will be greater inclusivity. I would like to conclude with two recommendations. The first recommendation, that because events like this are very promising, we do not want it to remain in halls like this. We want by the next year for every minister to be given a day where videos and pictures will be shown to the public on what is being delivered. The second recommendation we have, that because ministerial performance contracts are already in public domain and the public is judging ministers very highly, more than ever before, we call on government to ensure that this aspiration is matched by tangible support or real support for ministers. So I would just like at this moment to say thank you for inviting us, and we congratulate government and the people of Sierra Leone for this eminent delivery. Thank you, thank you.
I'm sure that was very close to a pass mark, but 1 year is just a short period to assess us on. But I think we've done very well. I think government is doing very well without being pretentious as well. We note your recommendations in good faith. As a listening government, I'm sure we'll take them on board, and that's one of the reasons why we're here, to learn from you and to see how we can do things differently to build a new Sierra Leone. On that note, again, we are aware of the challenges. We are aware of what happened in the last 1 year. Challenges that are not occasioned by government inefficiency or government ineffectiveness. That's more the reason why we all should come together as a nation to see how we can now develop a new approach to governance, a new approach to building our own country. But we note your recommendations in good faith. I'm sure the ministers have taken that on board, and the CM will run through that with them. Again, as I said, we have our friends here, the diplomatic corps and development partners as well. I will now invite the Deputy Dean of the Corps and the EU Ambassador to Sierra Leone to talk to us briefly.
Your Excellency, President Julius Maada Bio, the Honorable Speaker of Parliament, Your Lordship, the Acting Chief Justice, the Honorable Chief Minister, Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, Honorable Ministers, Members of Parliament, fellow international partners, representatives of CSOs and also of the media. Please allow me to stand on existing protocol. It gives me a great pleasure to respond from an international partner's perspective to this important presentation of the Honorable Chief Minister. First, let me warmly welcome that the focus of today's event is delivery. When we travel around the country and we listen to what people tell us, we can hear that what matters most to the people we meet upline is delivery. And delivery from their government and development of their districts. And that matters to them more than politics. As today's event focuses also on the gains, I would like to commend the government's development vision focused on the big five game changers, including priorities like food security and investment in agriculture, as well as education and human capital development. Furthermore, I would like to flag that Sierra Leone is off to a flying start in actions towards targets like reduce infant mortality through, for example, the launch of malaria vaccine in the country. Commend these steps taken to protect children from harm. The new Prohibition of Child Marriage Act that Your Excellency has signed some days ago aims at ensuring that all involved feel the most force of the law. And this is an important message. We also welcome the government's commitment to the reporting of child abuse cases in schools across the country. Now, for any country serious about delivery for its people, it means unlocking the full potential of the country. We celebrate the cross-party work to promote gender equality and women's empowerment, including relaunching the network of women parliamentarians and ministers, and the ongoing commitment to girls' education and radical inclusion, ensuring all girls have equal opportunities to success and to contribute to the future development of Sierra Leone. Radical inclusion means that everyone's voice is heard and delivery benefits to everyone. Sierra Leone is celebrating the gains in the last year, and there's a lot to celebrate. We also should not forget how this year of gains started. After the elections, it was not easy. The agreement of national unity that brought government and opposition together was an important gain in a difficult time, and the report from the Electoral System Review Committee recently submitted to you, Your Excellency, the President, has been another hard-won win. I commend government and opposition for keeping talking even when they disagreed, and I'm convinced that Sierra Leonean political actors have the willingness that this continues, because peace and cohesion is a backdrop of delivery and for gains for all. Therefore, I encourage all Sierra Leonean political actors to continue this important dialogue, strengthening inclusive governance and national cohesion. We are asked at this event today to think about not just the gains, but consolidating them. This often means stronger enforcement, putting more of Sierra Leone's robust policy and laws that make the country stand out internationally into practice, and government joining up to deliver. In this regard, I would like to recognize the leadership shown by the government recently to protect national forest cover and the environment, by the Ministry of Environment working together with the Sierra Leonean Armed Forces on behalf of all Sierra Leoneans. Consolidating the gains can mean difficult decisions. We know Energy has been a top concern for citizens. We want to acknowledge how government is engaged on energy reform, focusing on the increase of the number of beneficiaries in the country and working towards a credible process for reforming the sector and the public finances at the heart of the energy situation. We encourage the government to keep showing resolve, staying power and commitment to spread the real costs in the sector fairly and transparently without fear and favor. Feeds alone is a government top priority. Agriculture is an important, perhaps the most important job-creating machine. I'm thrilled to see Bank of Sierra Leone's Loan Access to Finance initiative, which will free up space for more private sector lending to boost agriculture. On this note, we understand Statistics alone may soon disclose a new profile for the size of the economy. We hope that these statistics will boost investors' confidence more broadly, as well as allow National Revenue Authority to advance even more strongly in its revenue collection mandate. Your Excellency, as non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, Sierra Leone is contributing to a rules-based international world order. Together, we can face looming global challenges such as climate change, pandemics, conflicts, and security. Delivery, of course, is a big agenda in tricky global times. You see a wide breadth of international partner today here because the links between our countries and people are strong, and we want to work together on delivery. You have CSO represented here also with a statement because they have a role to play. Local government, private sector, and opposition similarly are needed to help accelerate delivery at a national level. One finger, no they pick stone. I hope, Your Excellency, honorable ministers, honorable friends, I hope together with all these different important players mentioned, we can continue to support the government's drive to deliver for the people of Salone. Thank you very much.
I only also want to assure the ambassador that what matters to us as a government is development and not politics. That is why we avoided the use of political rhetoric throughout the presentation or all the statements made. I now have the pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, well, normally when the president speaks, in the days, even in the days of classical philosophy, when Plato speaks, nobody speaks. I'm sure you all have things to say, but you can direct your queries, your comments to the Chief Minister, and I ask politely that you know please silence. To His Excellency the President.
Let's sit down, please. Mr. Chair of this occasion, the Honorable Speaker of Parliament, the Acting Chief Justice, Chief Minister, Ministers of Government, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, our development partners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a pleasure to be here this afternoon to show openness and our willingness to share with you the little we have done in the past 365 days. Of course, it has been a difficult period immediately following the elections, one that has been contested, the results of which has been contested, but also as a result of series of political situations that have given rise to some sense of instability, especially the November 26th event. These were not of our making. These were, Minister, have been achieved against a very heavy headwind, both within the country and out of the country. Until this week, we had not had a proper political settlement since the election itself. We have been governing against that backdrop. We have been governing against a situation where we have not had the necessary financial resources. So I'm happy that we are here, and Mr. Chief Minister, I'm happy that you created this occasion for us to share with the people of this country and our development partners who have been with us all throughout this journey. And for our critical friends, it's good to have critical friends, and that's why I appreciate sometimes those who are critical of them also say they are evil society. I call them civil society. They are our best friends. And I hope that we have some journalists in here too. This is the beginning of a new Sierra Leone of openness. We do not claim monopoly over ideas. We believe that we are here to seek. And the bit that we had from the representative of civil society gives a great insight. But let me start to respond to some of the issues. You know, logically, when you engage national issues, you want to clear the ground first. And that was what we did in the first term. The new direction definitely wants to open up society. We want to bring development. We want Sierra Leone to be a part of the 21st century. But there are too many things that needed to be cleared. A lot of laws needed to be updated. There was too much debris on the ground to start to build the new Sierra Leone. So most of what we did in the last time was to clear the debris. Now we are ready to deliver. That is why we provided space for even our critical friends, journalists. We freed them from the shackles of the past that kept them tied. We opened the political space so that people could participate without the fear that they will be framed and killed. We opened the space for women to be a part of this journey. And we are creating space for even the children to be a part of this journey. So if you look at the catalog of things that we did and are still continuing to do, it's been much more of what the agriculturists will call land development. When you have to do agriculture, one of the most difficult aspects is actually clearing the land, preparing the land, especially for us who want to do irrigation. It's a lot of work. That is the most difficult thing. And when we chose human capital development, it was deliberate and intentional because it is a lip service to development. If you say you want to develop any nation without paying attention to the most critical resource of the country, the human capital, difficult and as expensive as it is, we were audacious enough without the necessary resources in our pocket to say we must embark on this journey. So we have been ambitious, audacious, but very intentional. And if we keep at this pace, we are laying a solid foundation for a nation that will be admired. In the short time, we've had a lot of international accolades because of what we have done. We have reduced maternal mortality by 61%. Let's not forget that 2 years out of the 5 years was taken completely by COVID. Completely. We could not do anything. And the lingering effects of COVID are still here with us. We have had exogenous shocks that are the tremor of which we are still having to deal with. Talk less about what has happened within the country, the political instability that has been machinated by other political forces. We have been at the receiving end, and for me, peace and political stability is a public good, and we should all endeavor and work towards creating that public good for us to create the ecosystem to be able to deliver. This is what we have delivered under very difficult circumstances, where, according to, our kids have been threatened. I remember a week ago or so, 2 weeks ago, my daughter asked me, should I go to school today? That is the most pathetic question. I felt bad that we live in a nation where some people will determine whether kids should go to school. Some people will threaten the peace of our nation. Where some people who are located in the diaspora, we say today we are going to start, a riot and we should kill everybody at State House, and they declare the death of individuals. But in a democratic setting, we cannot reach them. We have not been allowed to bring them to book. Yes, we have provided every document in terms of the activities and how that is negatively impacting. So, Mr. Civil Society, if you're saying you are very right, but what can we do before you accuse us of being heavy-handed again? We want to clamp down, but we are also aware and want to make sure that there is freedom in this country. What this government has done, which has not been properly articulated, is that in 1996, when we brought about representative democracy, it was without the liberal aspects of it, the freedoms and the other things that go with it. 20 or more years later, it is this government that has made our democracy, or is making our democracy, a liberal democracy. So this is why I want to thank you, Chief Minister, for this innovation. We talk about innovation. It's not just in the realm of technology. We are innovating around governance. How do we keep our people along with us? The suggestions made by our friend from civil society has been noted. We are beginning. We've started here. We will take this out to our people so they understand what is happening. More people will be part of this conversation because they need to understand what we have done and where we are going and why we have chosen this direction. Sometimes a lot of people resist and don't go along. We never get their buy-in because they don't know where we want to take them. It's a simple way for me. You cannot embark on the difficult journey of development without the human capacity. And that human capacity should be yours. You are not going to import people, experts, to come and develop your nation. A critical mass of us have to be properly trained to know how to engage the process of development. China is still developing. Yes. The United States is still developing. You should go there about this time when there is election. When they talk about the state of their infrastructure, then you wonder whether you have a better infrastructure. People tell you it's all torn apart. The process of development is painstakingly slow. But until you undertake some of these fundamental reforms and policies, you will never get there. It will be a wrong start. And that is why some people say, oh, I'm not feeling in my pocket. No, certain policies you don't feel in your pocket. Certain reforms you don't feel in your pocket. But without those, we will not deliver on the transformative projects that will actually bring tangible results for us. So we have been patient, and we know that the process of development is a painstakingly slow process. So bear with us. I think this is another opportunity for us to thank our development partners. They've been truly supportive. And if we are talking about raising, just last week when I was in Vienna, raising $850 million pledges that we have made. Again, speaker after speaker reminded us of how we have taken development, the proactive nature, and how realistic our programs were. And that is why they could look at us at this point in time. And for me, in as much as that amount is important, it is the confidence, the trust that different international institutions, including the United States of America, the EU, the British, have now placed in us, that they can say, yes, we have the right pair of hands where we can put this money and we know it will reach the people. When we say we are going to start with human capital development, we did not have anything, no fund, no nothing. Raw desire to change this country. We started, and today we are not out of the woods, but we have made enough impression on the world that we are serious about it, and that it